3, 2, 1, and we should be live. Mr. McWombles, go ahead and take it away with the intro.
Thank you very much for having me back. Graciously, the unofficial co-host Mitch allowed me back on the show. Thanks, Mitch. Welcome to the Yakuza. We are a group of guys who like Yakuza games and talking about them all the fucking time, and talking about good beer. We're not here to promote the use of Yakuza games. Please play Sega games responsibly. Well, some of us are here to promote but we'll get onto that in a minute. Just shut it. I don't know which quadrant you're in, but you're in the bottom right on mine, so shut it. If anyone would like to be on the show, please get in touch with Berkough or myself. And right, so please play Yakuza responsibly, particularly when they have an achievement. Only one of the four of us will have the "I did it for the platinum trophy." You know who you are, and you know what you did to get it. Right.
I feel like someone's on trial.
Jesus Christ. I'm already on the defensive. I got my arms crossed.
Cross-examination is about to begin.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll just do a quick round of introductions for everyone watching. I am Keith, also known as McWomble. And just a quick message to someone called Vincent Mound. Apparently he's got a podcast where he drinks coffee a lot with... I don't know. I don't listen to it. I don't think it's very good, really. And just to say, you need to be careful about talking about McKevin. Not because of anything I might do, but I just have a blank in my memory of 72 hours. I was walking down the street, a van pulled up, someone put a hood over my head. I woke up in Warsaw 72 hours later. So if you don't, be careful about how you talk about McKevin.
This is the real reason he wasn't on the show last week.
Yeah.
He was sick.
I was actually getting back from Warsaw. I checked myself for any kind of incriminating scars. I didn't wake up in a seedy bathroom full of ice. But now apparently the combination of my likeness and Evan's likeness is being used in Cyberpunk 2077. Who knows?
That has ruined that free Cyberpunk 2077 theme, by the way. I can't look at that anymore.
That's the character that I'm going to create when I get Cyberpunk 2077. I'm going to name him McEvan. And
I like this. I like this.
Right. So introductions. We have Mitch. Wave to everybody. Mitch was infected with the Yakuza virus and has now become overtly symptomatic. We have Berkough, who has recently been exposed to the Yakuza virus, but we don't know if he's been symptomatically effective. And then we have the spreader of the Yakuza virus, whether he is asymptomatic or not.
Patient zero.
Is yet to be behold. I've already warned the UK border agency that you may be harbouring some terrible Yakuza-based disease when you arrive at Heathrow. So there may be some initial screening tests that you may have to go through. But that's who we are.
I got my fake passport and everything, so I think we'll be one step ahead.
Yeah, we are going to do a purely Yakuza-themed episode because I just feel angry and want to let out some rage. And I'll quickly get on to beers. So in celebration of the 4th of July, I'm drinking Swill.
Sam Adams is good beer. I wouldn't call that Swill.
And to commiserate the British Air Force from the 18th century.
Thank you. I was going to say that.
I'm drinking Spitfire as well. And yes, thank you. Thank you for the Megan, whatever your name is. So when England scored, they didn't have any mocking celebrations because it's really difficult to stage, I don't know, buying semi-automatic or fully automatic weapons without any background checks.
I just had this conversation with one of my English friends earlier today, and we were thinking of what you guys could have done to celebrate. And I thought you could get in a line with the free kick, where you got, protect your private parts, and have someone run up to the free kick, and right before they're going to kick it, just kind of do one of these and have everyone fall down. That would be maybe a bit much, so that's probably why they didn't.
Yeah, they would have got booked for that. And yeah. I'm Scottish, so I didn't really give a shit either way.
Well, yeah, he's mostly Irish, so he didn't give a shit either way either.
Right. Which we'll go around clockwise on my screen. So Matt,
yes.
How are you?
I'm good.
How was your birthday? How have you actually got with how calendars and time works since your stream just before the 4th of July?
I worked it out. The holiday in the middle of the week, it did throw me off a little bit there. I thought it was Friday on Wednesday night. Thankfully, I did have Thursday.
Holy shit!
I did have.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, I had a few beers before we got on stream, so.
Fair enough.
I managed to catch a bit of Matt's stream first thing in the morning when I was getting ready for work, and he said, "What are you doing? Isn't it Saturday for you?"
Yeah.
Like, whoa, no.
Yeah, and then I had to catch myself, and I realized that England can't celebrate America's birthday, so But yeah, I've been doing well.
Also Britain. There's four countries.
But what they have instead is they have Wimbledon.
Yeah, which is what my wife's watching at the moment. She's watching Andy Murray play doubles.
With Serena?
No, with that French bloke who no one cares about.
Male doubles, right. Yep.
Yeah.
I watch it
all the time Murray, too. The only guy who can make something terribly exciting sound seriously dull.
I don't know. All I know is I played tennis for 2 months in high school, and I got ejected for a game for throwing my tennis racket over the fence and it getting stuck in a tree.
Who's the guy that's known for that? The tennis guy.
Oh, are you talking about McEnroe?
Yeah, well, McEnroe, and then wasn't there somebody else that was like known for being super hot-headed?
Since we're talking about beer, Kyrgios apparently before his match yesterday, the night before, he was shit-faced at a bar the night before till like 11 o'clock at night when he had a match to play at like noon the next day against the number 1 player in the world.
Well, he knew he was losing that. He's like, fuck it. Let me just enjoy.
Well, he hates him. That's the thing. So it's like, you'd think he would want to like prep up to kick his ass, but no, that didn't happen. He got his ass kicked.
Shout out to the
I don't appreciate this. I don't appreciate you bringing let's talk about tennis. We'll talk about I'm stalling.
Should we talk about Kei Nishikori? Would that make you happy?
Yes, go Kei Nishikori.
Oh, even though it's American with a Japanese name. Right. So keep going clockwise because that's how time works. Evan.
Yes.
Hello. Do you have anything interesting?
You didn't ask me any questions. You just said my name.
Well, I thought you'd actually follow the conversation because I asked Matt how he was.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
You weren't kidnapped and woke up in Warsaw at any point.
No. I mean, not anything I can discuss while streaming on YouTube. No, I'm fine. had a bit of a nap and on the road to recovery. Be okay.
Right. So, Mitch, before we get too gripped with what Evan has been doing today, how are you? How's things?
I'm good. I've been a little frustrated the last couple of days, but that's because I was playing Cuphead, and that game is freaking hard.
How dare you? You should be praying to the Sega gods, waiting for the release of, was it Yakuza 3 or Kiwami 2 or whatever the hell the next one is?
I need 3 HD to come out so I can play it, and then I can play the rest of them because I'm not gonna skip. Can't do.
Oh, that's right. You're
I'm American. I don't get the Japanese versions.
Sorry, just open a book, study a bit of Japanese. You'll be fine. You'll be on your way.
We honestly should just make our own show where you teach me Japanese, and then we go through a Yakuza game together where you teach me the Japanese. And so, basic translation. You be my translator and help me learn words while you're playing Yakuza 3.
Let's do it.
Right, and just before we get into the main topic, a shout out to our high-profile lurker from Sifted.net. It didn't work properly.
Oh my God. You have to leave that up so that I can thumbnail it.
Oh God! Sorry, my screen was like closed to where I only saw me. Berkough. I did not see that until just now.
Yeah, OTAPS is going to be disappointed if Hoff is not on the thumbnail.
True.
So, right, what are we going to do? We are going to go through the Yakuza games. Obviously, Evan is only a minor fan.
No.
He's quite happy to sit through naughty videos in order to get a platinum trophy. Mitch is becoming a bit of a major fan, and both Matt and I have played a bit of Zero. So we want to get out of the discussion why do people think this franchise is becoming so culturally significant, and also to see if we would actually want to go back and play anymore. Obviously, Evan will play anything that's produced from the Yakuza studio, and you can mention Judge Eyes, and we will only be calling it Judge Eyes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I seriously do.
Yeah. So I don't know if Mitch, you want to kick us off in terms of saying kind of, because you actually got into the Yakuza franchise because Evan would never shut the fuck up about it. Is that correct?
This is true, yes.
I actually didn't know that until quite recently, and I'm very happy to hear that.
Well, to be frank, for him, it was he's been talking about forever, never played it. I think the only time I heard about it from you was when I was on Podcast Reload, and we were talking about the guy that outlawed pineapple on pizza. And I asked if there was pineapple in Yakuza, and you said you get back to me. Haven't heard back from you on the pineapple. So I'm a little disappointed on that end. But it was on sale for Black Friday, like 2 years ago. 0 and 1, and I ended up getting 1 and then regretted it only because 1 was free on PlayStation Plus like 3 months later, and I was like, damn it,
as it happens,
should have bought 0 and I would have got 1 for free. But I would say I am not I like the games a lot. I don't think they're amazing games, but they're really good games, and I think people undermined the games themselves, and I think they're a lot better than what people give them credit for. And so that's why
I don't give them very much credit, so that's probably works for me.
Well, I just don't understand why it's got this weird rep. Like it's like this game is actually a good game. I don't understand. Like it's at least a really good game. If not, there's aspects of it that are really great that I find compelling, which I mean, I find the story compelling, and I love Japanese settings. So it's really cool to see. We're used to like the American gang games all the time, like Grand Theft Auto and how America's gangs work. And it's interesting to see a different culture and how their structure works in regards to how a group of people would take over a certain territory, and how does that work within their traditions of respect and honor and integrity and all those kinds of things in the Japanese culture.
And so real estate crime.
Oh yeah, it's always about real estate. No, I was talking with Vin about this. I was talking with Vin about this a little bit in terms of Watch Dogs, and of course, Vin Hill is working on Watch Dogs Legion, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But you know, I just like to see like these type of open world games that are set in like modern times in a city. Just get away from the States. Like we've seen it all before. Take it like anywhere else. And so even in that regard with Watch Dogs, you know, it's I'm happy to see it just go somewhere else. Obviously, like GTA 2 took place in London, but yeah, I'm happy to see it. So it's like you said, Mitch. It's nice to see these kind of open world modern games that's filled with, you know, crime and mystery and intrigue and stuff set anywhere other than the States, because I think we've had plenty of those games.
And to back off on that is, why is Assassin's Creed so successful? Because it's somewhere besides the freaking United States. It's interesting places that people want to see. Like it just that just goes with your argument, which I think it works.
Right. I am an Assassin's Creed 3 apologist, but I do see your point.
Yeah.
They change it up every time. So yeah, there is that.
I'm actually curious, Mitch and Evan, do you guys both consider Yakuza to be an open world, like GTA like game?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no, because it's not really open world, is it? It's like 6x6 block. It's very limited in that sense. It's a small neighborhood, and even when they do have multiple locations, like in Zero, there's another location in that game, and that's also a very small location. So it's definitely more limited. And I don't know what the initial idea around that was. Maybe it's like money. Maybe they just wanted to focus on a district in Tokyo.
There was an interview where they said it was about the fidelity. Oh shit! Who's that?
Oh,
look out!
It's the greatest.
It's Kiryu Kazuka.
The greatest protagonist in all video games. Oh, that's great.
So they said it was about they wanted to make the place feel more alive and vibrant. So the only way that they could do that is by making it restricted. So you could focus on the smaller details that were within the world of 6x6 blocks.
I appreciate your due diligence here, McWomble. I'm surprised.
Oh, if I'm going to shit talk something, I'm going to research it first.
Fair enough.
I think if I would compare it to something, if you're saying like is it an open world game, I would say it's a Tomb Raider style open world game where, it's got a smaller environment that's explorable, but you do have linear paths that you do have to take within that to be able to complete certain tasks. And there's side missions you can do within that smaller hub world. So I wouldn't say it's completely open world because there's a lot of, you're not going to have access to everything constantly. Something like a GTA where you're constantly accessible to the open world all the time. Where, as you noticed, Berkough in Yakuza, you're going to take a cab and all of a sudden you're going to go to this building and you have no access to the open world until you get done with it. So
right. Well, the reason I brought that up is because I had the epiphany last night that, at least with Zero, I don't know about the other ones, these games are basically action RPGs, complete with random fucking battles and side quests. They're not really like similar to GTA in really any regard, as far as I can tell. They feel like they have a JRPG lineage to them.
Sometimes the stories can be just as fucking tedious.
That too.
Yeah, it's I think it's similar to the Japanese style of those small condensed gardens they have, where it's a lot smaller, but in these gardens there's a lot going on depending on how you look at it. It's condensed for a reason. Similar to like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, right? That was kind of their idea behind that game. It's like, let's get this really small world, but let's pack it with a lot of stuff that you can tackle from different angles. And I think that's what they did with this game, whether that be McWomble, what you said about how they wanted to create a
higher fidelity world. And I'm sure there's a lot of like money that, like they had limited resources. Japanese companies don't tend to spend as much as some Western series on games just because of budget and stuff. But it's like, all right, let's make a smaller map, but we'll make the space meaningful because we're going to pack it with these side quests and all these types of things. So I definitely think that is part of it.
People handing out tissues on every street corner.
Hey, and by the way, did those pocket tissues not come in handy?
Yeah. They did, actually.
See?
That was the first thing that I thought of when the stop and frisk cop stopped me. I was like, oh, I've got those tissues. I'll just give them these.
There you go. But it's also a big joke about pocket tissues being a way of advertising. in Japan. So like they'll give you a pocket tissue with like a little pamphlet slip like slid inside. So when you usually in stations and stuff at major like hub points of like commuting, people just be with massive baskets of tissues and just handing them out. I get them all the time. I literally have a giant box full of pocket tissues that I've racked up from just simply walking in and out of stations.
Well, at least they're more useful than the shit that like here they just hand out pamphlets like, here, you throw this away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then like look at the closest like trash bin.
Yeah,
and it's just full of the pamphlet you just got, right? So,
right. Yeah, you could.
Yeah, I use those pocket tissue things all the time. Very useful.
Has anyone ever done flyering as a job?
Oh God, no. That sounds terrible.
No.
I had to do it. I needed some quick cash, so I did it. And it was that sense of you hand this stuff out, someone chucks it in the nearest bin. So I just thought, screw it. I just threw them all in the bin. And I just went off.
I like your way of thinking.
It was more efficient that way. Right. So I seem to be the only one between us who has developed an immunity.
How much of Zero have you played, Keith?
I played 5-6 hours.
Okay, so you're about where I'm at then.
Yeah.
All right.
And I had to. I stopped watching you streaming it because I just had flashbacks to the tedium of that fucking game.
Okay, so I do have issue with the combat a little bit, but I think
that's the one bit I like.
It gets better.
So
Berkough, it gets better.
Well, yeah, I think it's because I haven't unlocked anything yet.
Well, you're on chapter. After I saw you last night, I didn't know what chapter you were on. You just finished chapter 1. You're not even like close. Like
your moveset is in super limited. I mean, you have like square, triangle, and that's about it. But
yeah,
the further you get in the game, you'll be unlocking what is essentially like fighting game sequences of like button input, and it gets more complex the more you play it, and then you have more styles. And so you'll get all that stuff, but that that is a part of all of these games where if you didn't know that the combat would get more interesting, you might be playing this and like this combat is like insanely simple, like too simple, and it's not fun because you win every battle type of thing.
Simple and like I was trying to dodge with the first boss and it wasn't responding, and like I would block and he would just stand there, and then as soon as I let off the block he would then hit me and I'm like, what the fuck, that was so cheap. It was so frustrating.
If I have
he's a crime lord, what do you expect?
Yeah, come on, super realistic. If I have any criticism of this game, I will say that, well, one, it's really really arcadey in that sense, and especially with bosses, to where they'll have like iframes just because they're bosses, and when they're like powering up or they get to their second stage, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it'll break the rules of what the game has taught you, and then he'll just fucking wipe the floor with you, and it's like, no, this is not right. I should be able to block this move, or he shouldn't be able to block this move, and it just gets super arcadey in that sense, especially with boss battles. And you will get frustrated because there'll be times where they'll just be able to bust through all of your shit and you kind of have to run away and grab a chair.
So the crazy thing is, one of the first things that I found as soon as I got back into town after that, and after you do the chapter 2 intro and all that, is you meet up with the dude that was with the guy that teaches you how to buy your abilities.
Do you mean the drunk Westerner, the guy who teaches you the fighting styles?
Right.
Which is kind of fucked up, because in Japan there's this thing about like foreigners being drunks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm helping that stereotype, but yeah, it's like, okay, there's a foreigner who's a fucking alcoholic. Like, let's
right. But the first challenge, the first challenge that you do, the first challenge that you do with him is like learning how to dodge. At no point was that ever taught to you, like prior to that first boss fight. That was frustrating for me, because I was like, oh, if I had known that this is how this mechanic works, I would have enjoyed the boss fight a little more because I would have known that I had this ability, you know.
Right, but to be fair, like you did encounter that early enough in a game that could last 50 hours. So if you like actually divvy up the time that it took you to get there, but I see your point because that side quest where you're in the parking lot and you can take on that drunk guy, you don't even necessarily have to do that. So if you don't do that side quest, you might not know how to do that, and you just would have to learn it while you're in combat by yourself.
Right.
So I do get that point.
Well, to be frank, to be honest, I never dodged. Neither did I ever block. Like, honestly, it's better to just run around the guy and then do a high-end kick or something like that instead. At least I found it better to do that or move back. I never used it as like a mechanic to actually like dodge or block the enemy's actual attack to me because I found that it just never really worked out for me. So
like the old bob and weave.
Bob and weave, man. Bob and weave.
Yeah. By the way, that I don't want to give too much away because Matt, there's things that you should find out about yourself, but that is the best style to take down Mr. Shakedown. But
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Don't fuck with that guy for a little bit, but if you want to make a shit ton of money, you make a bunch of money, go to him, lose on purpose, so he gets all your money, and then fight him again and get all that money back and then some, and you will make a shit ton of money.
Okay.
But yeah, that's like way later in the game because he's a bit too powerful now, I think.
Which makes no goddamn sense.
Oh, it's a video game. Leave Mr. Shakedown alone.
So there were bits of my playthrough of Zero that I did actually enjoy. So the fight where you break out of the Yakuza safe house, kicking the shit out of everyone on your way, that was actually a really enjoyable sequence. And Evan, we spoke about this, and I was saying I don't understand how this guy's just Mr. Shakedown. He's a bit bigger than other people, but I've just beaten up about 20 gang members, including punching a guy through a glass ashtray in the face. Right. But I can't beat up this guy because he's a bit big.
He's like he's like 8 feet tall though.
It's well, if you want to go back that far, like the whole game will fall apart because like later in the series when Kiryu becomes known as the Dragon of Dojima, everybody knows this guy, and yet you're back at Kamurocho. If anyone saw you, they would recognize you immediately, and yet you have these punks thinking that they can take you on when you've just like wiped the floor with like 30 like well-trained Yakuza guys through 3 or 4 games. If anything, those people would see you and run the other way, but yet you would constantly have to deal with like thieves and assholes. So yeah, it is a bit silly, but that's kind of just hand wavy shit. You just can't get around. I mean, if they did that, then you'd be walking around the city and you wouldn't be fighting anybody. So I guess.
Well, they could think up, I don't know, a more interesting way of making fights,
like
just having punks or drunks or drunk businessman or.
I don't know if it would be as fun though. I mean, it would be like the Metroid thing where like at the start of every game, Samus loses all of her powers and she's got to get them all back type of thing, which kind of happens, I guess, because every game you have to build out your skill tree. But whatever. I mean, it's like, yes, the video game parts do get in the way of the game making sense on a realistic level, but I don't know. Like I would kind of chalk that up to it being a video game.
Plus, I would say, how realistic would this really happen?
Oh, he'd be arrested immediately.
Yeah, like some of the things that happens in the Yakuza games. Japan would have been an outlaw. He would have been like an outlaw by now. He would have been like in prison by the end of the first game.
Well, at least he's not doing coke.
No, he's not.
Not yet.
Even after the first chapter, he's like, "Oh, the police are looking for me," and like immediately you're walking around in broad daylight. And then you run into that cop and hand him the tissues, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I thought he was going to be arrested at that point. I was like, "Oh, all right, this is where I get arrested, and like this is going to be more of the story." Nope, my friendship meter went up.
Yeah, totally, man. Hey, that police officer is awesome. You will run into him several times throughout the game. But I mean,
I don't mind
think
that stuff.
the game cheats a bit because when you're not doing story stuff, it kind of just like, okay, you're in the let's just separate the serious story stuff from with the open world stuff, so it doesn't necessarily connect all in one and be that realistic. But I think just going to if we want to talk about the general tone of the game, it has a lot to do with just that, where there is a big there's a wide gap between the main story and everything else you do in the game. There's a weird juxtaposition there. For example, like the serious melodrama of the main story mixed with these Japanese characters and this really campy stuff.
Right.
So like, yeah, you know, like it's a main character. He like brutally destroys bad guys of all kinds, but then helps random citizens with their like bullshit problems and that type of thing. Like, there's parts in the game where like you'll pistol whip someone because there's a power you can unlock where you can like take weapons from people that have them, like knives and guns and stuff. So you'll like take the weapon, pistol whip them, shoot them. But the general idea is like Kiryu doesn't kill anybody. Like they did not die. They are totally fucking dead, but they did not die.
Okay.
And he could just be he could have studied human anatomy and he could be a very good shot.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm just gonna teach you a lesson. All right, you're not gonna bleed out. The ambulance will come. Like it's free. It doesn't cost $5,000 like in the States. The ambulance is free. Right. We have national health care. It's okay. But yeah, there is that. Okay, so I read an article about Dave Chappelle and how he is really upfront about how rich he is.
Okay.
Because a lot of the stuff he talks about, it's like, okay, like there's a disconnect between the audience and him because he is so fucking rich. But one thing he does is it's hard for comedians, especially when they get really famous, to play the average man. It's like, let's just say Louis C.K.
Right.
You know, but he had this old joke about being broke, which is a great bit. If I know, say what you will about Louis C.K., whatever. If you don't want to watch this, fine. But he has this great bit about being broke, and he kills for 5 minutes straight about being broke. He can't do that joke anymore because he's fucking rich. But for Dave Chappelle, he's so good at putting that stuff up front and putting how rich he is in his jokes. He's able to play both sides of the fence, and it shouldn't work, but it does. And in that way, the idea of this crazy like balance, this tonal shift that's really jarring in the Yakuza series between the melodramatic serious story stuff versus this really weird, like very Japanese wacky shit, it shouldn't work, but it does, because I think it just puts it out there immediately and tells you like, this is what this game's about. So it allows it doesn't come in halfway through the game. It's very clear about what it wants to be very early in the game. And I think that allows it to kind of sidestep that criticism of this kind of tonal shift that happens throughout the series, at least in my opinion.
And I think
I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to say that for you.
Well, and I also say on top of that, what it does is that there are moments that will happen in the games where like it's so serious of what has happened in the world of the story or the melodramicness of it, that the actual world will be affected by it, but it has to be extremely significant for that to happen, where the regular city stuff where you can do the crazy wacky stuff, it has to be a real serious event for that stuff to be affected by it.
Right.
So it helps with it to go, okay, we'll affect this world, but it has to be extremely significant for us to do so. So even though cops may be after him, who knows, maybe he has those cops in the town paid off, and so they're not going to go for him if he's in the town because he's safe in the town. But once I don't want to give stuff away, but once stuff happens in the town, then all bets are off, and all of a sudden the world itself in that town is affected, compared to like, oh, it happened in this warehouse, it didn't happen in the town.
Yeah, it's like, of course, being like an insanely not biased, well, whatever. I'm a massive Yakuza fan. I hand wave shit away all the time, whereas like I'm arguing about in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I'm watching this guy sit on a trash heap, and he's got a beer bottle with the bottle cap on. I'm like, how is this guy drunk? There's a fucking bottle cap on his beer. But that shit happened, and it bothered me. And yet, in the Yakuza series, I'm like, oh no, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
Also, I do have to give a shout out of you pointing out that I didn't catch this when I played it either, but how in the world does Laura not speak any Spanish to the guys there?
It's so stupid.
It's so strange. Not even like a sentence.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, those games play it so
serious. It's because she hadn't listened to the Spanish podcast Reload.
There you go.
And learned Spanish.
Yeah. Check those guys out, by the way. They get consistent, like, 2,000 views per episode. So
we'll get there one day.
Yeah, but the thing about Shadow of the Tomb Raider and games where, like, you might not be able to hand wave this stuff away, they play it so seriously in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That game is entirely serious, where the Yakuza series plays its cards immediately, so it allows you to jump through those mental hoops and forgive it for some of its jarring tonal shifts.
And heck, people are able to forgive GTA for doing this kind of stuff. Why can't you forgive Yakuza?
Right.
I don't forgive GTA.
You don't forgive no one, McWomble.
Yeah.
No one gets any forgiveness.
Only Commander Shepard.
Which his birthday is April 11th.
Okay, so
we're just, because you guys have been talking about story, one of the things that I found particularly difficult to get over, and I'm just reiterating a conversation that Evan and I had back in kind of 2017, I think it was.
It was quite a while ago, yeah.
Whereas the start of Zero just killed me. So you spent the first kind of pretty much the first 2 hours of the game just with exposition, and it was more like a walking simulator than anything else.
There is a lot of it.
Then you'd stop walking, and then there'd be a cinematic cutscene, and then there'd be an animated cutscene that was voiced, and then there'd be a in-game text box element for about 5 minutes. Just what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I can't really say
much. That is I speak the truth. What my question is to you and Mitch, Evan, is that the same throughout the series, or is just Zero particularly heavy up front, or is this just the asymptomatic thing about Japanese views on storytelling?
I would say no, and so to be frank of what I've played, I have not played Zero, but I've played Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2. And the thing for me is watching Berkough play, it's very striking to see how different I think it feels that Zero is compared to Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2. And then I think also, the difference is obviously Kiwami 1 and 2 are based off the original two first games, and Zero is a completely new game that they created just to add to the series. And so I feel as I watch Berkough play that it's not really, it's a really different Yakuza experience than what I see when I was playing 1 and 2. And so I don't think you should hold it on that merit in regards to, like, because 1 is, yeah. And then that thing that you're talking about, McWomble, doesn't happen all the time. I mean, in 1, it didn't happen very often. It's very occasional.
Yeah, those weird cutscenes where
the mouths don't move.
Yeah, the characters are narrating and the mouths don't move. That is only in Yakuza 0. So what I think happened is they just tried something new. Okay, I'll say one thing about this. Obviously, I'm an apologist. There's a couple people that have brought up, like, man, this is really fucking weird. Like, it's like, is it that?
Yes.
Is it bad? Like, who gives a shit?
No, it's fucking strange because
it's strange, but it's not necessarily bad.
You have fully voice acted, like, normally animated cutscenes, and then it jumps. And then it's like, well, are they thinking this? Are they talking to each other? I can't really tell. There's sepia tone on top. I don't know what that means.
Okay. I guess I played a couple games before I played Zero.
And then it jumps to, like, just text, and they don't talk.
Right.
So that is
But I
very
would argue
strange.
with you, Berkough. You're literally playing Final Fantasy VIII right now, and it has similar aspects. Obviously, it doesn't have the voice actors, but it has the cuts where it's like a quick CG cutscene intro of a character, and all of a sudden it goes to random text.
I would be perfectly fine if if Yakuza 0 was just text. I would be perfectly fine with that. I would have.
Okay. That's what I found jarring, the fact that it transitioned potentially from 3 different styles of storytelling in one segment.
Yeah, in the course of like 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, okay. I do get that. It doesn't really bother. Of course it doesn't, right? I was like, okay, whatever. They're taking some sort of artistic someone thought like, hey, let's try this out. They never did it in any other game. It's not in any other game. So there's that. So I think they tried it out once. Maybe it didn't work and they moved on, type of thing. But yeah, I don't really know why. I don't know why they chose that. But it's not in any other game.
0 seems like a slight experimental type game in the series. Based off what I've seen compared to what I've played in like the trailers and gameplay I've seen of 0, I'm like, this is very different of my experience. And
I mean, the kind of the tone of the game and what the story arc and the characters, like, that's all kind of, there's a big through line there. It hits all the bulletin points of what makes a Yakuza game. But yeah, they did take some artistic liberties maybe in that regard.
That's why personally I'd recommend you play Kiwami 1 first. And I think that's why I chose Kiwami 1 first, was because I think 0 came later in making it. And so I think they tried to tie things into 1, but I think it's much easier to go into 1 and maybe play 0 and then get those nuances that tie into it. So then you actually get like what the experience really is.
But well, Mitch, you've played Kiwami and 0. Do you really think that's a good idea, judging from how the story flows, though?
Because I haven't played 0. I played Kiwami 1 and 2.
Oh, you haven't played 0. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm watching Berkough play Kiwami. I'm sorry, Berkough playing 0 right now, and based off what I've seen him play, I felt like I was like, oh, I get a lot of these characters a lot better because I know 1.
Right. Okay.
And so when he was talking about, oh, who's this guy cutting off his finger, and I was like, oh, I know that dude. I didn't know he lost a finger. I should have looked for it.
We don't know, but I will say I think you'll change your mind once you see more of 0.
Okay.
Judging from so it's like years before Kiwami.
Yeah.
In the 80s. They flesh out the characters that are in Kiwami that I think is an important.
Are they basically fleshing out the relationship between the two, like, brothers, but not brothers?
Yeah, which is like super important, that feeds into Kiwami. But whatever, you might think differently, but I think it's, I don't know. I played the games all out of fucking sequence, and I was fine with eventually putting the puzzle pieces together. But all right,
the core experience of a Yakuza game, because as you said, 0 seems to be experimental. Kiwami 1 seems to be the best way to get the gameplay experience and what you're going to experience the game for the rest of the series be like, compared to 0, where it's a little wackier.
Yeah, they've kind of trimmed the fat. It's a much smaller game. Kiwami is a much smaller game. Okay, so getting back to Matt and Keith, I don't know who wants to tackle this first. I'd like to hear from both of you what you like about the game and what you don't like about the game, and then we're going to destroy your argument. I'm just kidding. So, but
put your evidence on trial.
No, because we're, Mitch and I are kind of we're puffing the game up a little bit and being apologists. So I'd like to. How about Matt? Do you want to go first? Like, your overall thoughts based on your limited time with the game in the last 2 weeks, and then maybe go to Keith in terms of like why
slagging everything off.
There you go. Yeah. So Matt, you spent about 6 hours with the game over the past 2-3 weeks. Like, just take me through your thought process and like being exposed to the game for the first time.
So, all right, we already talked about the weird cutscenes, right? If it had not been for you being such a huge advocate for this series, I probably would have stopped before the 2-hour mark to get my refund on Steam.
Oh.
But
good man.
But
I couldn't do that. I spent 40 quid on that fucking game, and I think when I traded it in, I got less than half back.
So, having put the time into it now, it's sort of opened up a little bit, and I could see that it's, like I said,
it's slow. It starts off really slow.
Well, like from my perspective, this is an action RPG. This is not an open world game or anything like that. Like I'm looking at it from.
I don't want to cut you. This will be the only time I cut you off, but this is
no, it won't be.
Okay, fair enough. But this is in regards to the video that you put up. I love the point in your last video where you made that revelation, like, this is a fucking RPG.
It's totally is without levels.
These are random battles, man. Like I was watching you and I saw it on your face. I was like, yeah.
So now that I've hit that revelation, like I'll keep playing it, and I want to see how the combat system evolves. I'm not too fond of it right now, but as I'm learning the different stuff that you can do and like being able to, I mean, your yen is basically your experience points and your cash in the game, right? So I'm going to start dumping yen into different aspects of the progression tree and see how that shakes down. I don't know that I'll actually ever finish the game.
It's a long game.
That's the other thing. So like, what is there? 15 chapters total?
Yeah. Most of the games are like 13, 14, 15 chapters.
Do each of the chapters take roughly like 4 hours to get through?
No.
It really depends on how much of the side stuff you want to tackle. Like if, like, for example, when I was doing my my Yakuza 6 Platinum walkthrough, so I spent like 20 hours on the main game, and then you have to play it again, and I beat it in like 6.
Okay.
Because I mainlined the story, so it really depends on the side stuff that you want to do.
So
yeah, and to be honest,
in 6 you've got to spend at least 3 hours watching softcore porn to get that. I did it for the trophy.
Oh, I mean, I do that in my free time, so it's basically like, like, you know, it's like I haven't worked a day in my life. You know, the benefits, everything. It's great.
But no, he's right, Berkough. When I played it, I kind of was doing it during Christmas time, so I was trying to hammer it out a bunch and get through it, because I was also near the end. The story gets really intriguing where you're just like, I just want to do story. And so it ranges. Like sometimes one of the chapters took me 30 minutes to do. One of the chapters took me 2 hours to do. It's really random in regards to like how much time a chapter takes. Doing a 4-hour chapter seems a little long in my like thinking of how long a chapter is. Usually it's around the most 2 hours was what I ran into in other games. Obviously I didn't play Zero, so.
Right, but a lot of like the beginning chapters are so tutorial heavy.
Right,
to their
exactly.
detriment at some point, because it's like so much fucking text. So McWomble, I get you there. Like you're constantly stopped by someone who's going to teach you a new thing, like that drunk Westerner. And you're just like, what's going on? And Matt as well, you're like, the fuck is going on? Like I thought it was following Nishikiyama to like, you know, to the next thing. You're like, wow, this is taking so long to get through the idea of, okay, this guy's going to teach me how to fight type of thing.
Not only that, like his introduction is just text. It's not like any of the other characters. That's
a budget thing, I guess. I don't know.
He just shows up and he's like, what? And then it's text. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like this
it's a rare game, like it's Banjo fucking Kazooie.
Basically, yeah.
All right, so sorry, Matt. Getting back to your thoughts as you're going through the game.
So because
what do you like?
I do like the combat.
I disagree with you on the combat.
You do like.
I just think you're a bit shit at it because I watched you and you are.
I could be
last week.
Dude, I switched controllers even. Like I had to plug in my DualShock 4 and not use the Steam controller because I was like, this is horrible. I'm doing horribly in this game.
Yeah, pick up a goddamn chair. And then I saw you got some health. I was so happy to see that.
Yeah. There was some off-screen grinding that I did just to like try and figure out, and
Kind of noticed.
Well, to be fair to you, the game didn't say like, hey, like there's a fight coming up. You might want to fucking stock up on some energy.
Well, it doesn't tell you where to get that shit either. Like you guys figured that out.
You have to learn it yourself, which is
I
really interesting. Because I think I went through my first boss fight and I didn't know anything about health, and it was like that boss fight is like a major boss fight, probably like one of the hardest boss fights in the entire game is in the beginning. And I didn't know I needed health. So I all of a sudden went to town. I had to go back to my old save because I always do 2 saves just in case.
Yeah.
And I went back to the one previous and got a bunch of health. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this fight is so much easier when I got health in my pocket.
And I think like video games should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. But I guess in my experience, since I've been playing these games for so long, like the map is exactly the same. Some stores change because it changes with the time period. All those convenience stores and the pharmacy are in the exact same place for every fucking game. So starting off in a game, I know exactly where to go. It's like, okay, do this stuff. But the game should stand on its own 2 feet. And especially if it's 0 being the first one, they should do like a side quest, or Nishikiyama should say like, hey, let's go to the convenience store to stock up on some food, or you know what I mean? Like do that before to teach you that, okay, this is where you get your food. This is where you get your drinks to replenish your health and that type of thing. So I do get that.
So, all right. I like that it's basically a modern day RPG. I don't like the way that it approaches some of the storytelling. And I'm sort of mixed on the combat now. I didn't like it at first, but now that it's opening up, I could see myself learning to like the combat system and getting a lot better at it.
Something I'll mention to you that you did mention on your stream was you're like confused on what characters were whom. It will make a lot more sense the further you get along the game. All of a sudden you go, okay, that's the guy that did that. That's the guy that does that. This is the guy's importance in this. They do. It's one of those games where it's a rough time to start it in regards to story for them, because they don't really introduce characters. They more of just say, you're going to be put in a situation where you have to know these characters, where you're like expected to know these characters because you've been Kiryu this whole time, your entire life. And so you just already have these relationships. But by the time you end it, you're like, oh, I know who that is. I get what significance they have in this plot and their story and everything. So like when you were like, who is the guy that I thought this guy was his father or something like that, I think is what you said last night. And so it'll make so much more sense the further you go along the game, which is, I think it's to its benefit, because, you know, to pull off that kind of story, you have to kind of throw you into it and just say, here are some characters. They're going to do some stuff. It's going to seem really insignificant in this moment, but then you're going to hit this moment and you go, oh, I totally get why he did that. Oh, I get why that character's like that. Oh, I totally get who this person is. And it just, it kind of is, I like that because it's a different approach compared to being like, let's introduce this person. This person's values are this. They're going to go through this. It's kind of fresh.
There's also an issue of like, we don't know how the Japanese.
There's many issues.
Your family is work. So like,
so sorry, Evan, I'll interrupt you now because I disagree with. I know where Mitch is going.
No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, attack it.
Yeah.
How dare you say no to me?
But he's it might just be your phraseology. I get what you mean, but I think your phraseology is wrong in the sense that they don't throw you into anything. It is tedious walking simulator exposition.
No, I'm sorry. In the story itself, not the gameplay.
Okay.
I should clarify that. And I guess because I'm assuming I was talking about Berkough and his thing, he kind of knew what I was saying. But yes, story wise, it throws you into it expecting to understand these people, and you don't know who they are. But then by the end, you're like, I know exactly who this person is.
Yeah, I'll eventually say something that I do like about it. Just not
okay.
Yet.
No, say it now. I want to hear it.
Not yet. Okay.
Oh.
Well, Keith,
I'll jump in quickly with in terms of story being slightly confusing. I do the idea of how a Japanese mafia family works in terms of the tree is super confusing because you have no idea like the hierarchy of how everything works. Like you have the Tojo clan, and then under there you have families. And all a family means is like they've got enough respect to make their own family under the Tojo clan, and then they have their group under there, and anyone who does something good or makes a bunch of money can get their own family and move up. And so like at first you're like, okay, like the Dojima clan, like how are they related to the Tojo clan? It's like it's all under the same umbrella. So that shit is super confusing, but the more you play the game, the more you'll kind of start to realize like where people are in the hierarchy.
Which I think is the compelling thing of what we mentioned in regards to it being a game style that's, you know, it's different than the American game, because, you know, how the clans work in the system it works within. And then when you get into other games where you get to rival clans and see how their structure is, either it's similar or slightly different, it always gets really interesting to see a different culture work in regards to that aspect. I think that's what's so appealing.
And in terms of a different culture, not how that works, but in terms of storytelling, McWomble, I do agree with you, and this is something I have an issue with in anime, is Japanese style of storytelling can be ridiculously giving too much exposition in the wrong way. There's a trope. It's like in Dragon Ball or whatever. It's like, I know that guy. He killed my father, and therefore I want revenge. It's like no character would ever say that out loud.
Monologue that to themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly, because they don't have an interesting way to weave it into the story.
Unless your name is Inigo Montoya.
Yeah, in a natural way. Did you say Inigo Montoya?
Inigo Montoya. Yeah. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yeah, you keep on using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Sorry. Continue.
But yeah, there's a trope in Japanese storytelling in games and in anime where they do these exposition dumps that are so unnatural, and they don't weave it into the story because they either that's just the way it is, or they can't find a better way to convey to the audience exposition in a way of like a fish out of water tale or something like that. And it just sounds lazy, because it's like, okay, I want to know this stuff, but weave it into the conversation between the two characters. Don't just like look at the camera and explain to me what's going on. So I do agree with you in that sense that the exposition dumps are a bit lazy, but I also think it's kind of a trope of Japanese storytelling in terms of, I don't know, video games and anime and stuff. But that's not to say that it's right.
Yeah, and in the same way, I'm not going to say that I finished Red Dead 2 recently.
Oh, you did?
I want to get Michael Raphael back on, because he was really keen on doing a Red Dead 2, similar to the Matt and you and I did for Mass Effect Andromeda.
Like a total breakdown of it, right?
Yeah, a really kind of in-depth breakdown of that.
God damn it.
Yeah. Red Dead 2's ending.
Oh, I want to hear this at a later date. I'm insane.
So I'm not going to be an apologist for the kind of the Western style of storytelling either, because everyone can get it wrong. It's just I found the storytelling, particularly at the early part of Zero, to be so jarringly off-putting that it actually put me off playing the bits of the game that I enjoyed.
Yeah, and it's one of those things in games where it's like, look, show me what you got in the first couple hours, or like, I'm not investing my time in this game. Some games get better later. The classic Final Fantasy 13. Wait till hour
40.
25 or whatever, or 40 or whatever. It's like, you can't ask someone to put that much time into a game when they have very limited time to play games.
But they can, because they have the title and the brand.
There you go.
Final Fantasy, right. You are going to put your time into it because it's Yakuza.
I didn't. I chucked that game right out the window.
Final Fantasy 13?
Oh, yeah. I bought it in the bargain bin, and then I was like, fuck this after the second hour.
I couldn't get past a part in Final Fantasy 13, so I could never even finish it. So I said, screw this.
I somehow played 13 and 13 too. I don't know how the fuck I did that. But so Yeah, like I think Matt, you were
Go ahead. Trying to give this a bit more structure rather than just rambling the fuck on about Yakuza. As much as Evan would appreciate us talking about it, I don't know, for every single episode. So let's talk about the world. I do like the fact that they tried to pack so much into what is a very limited space in terms of game size.
Right.
What I found that it was more distracting than I thought it was going to be. So I wanted to actually progress. I was actually going to explain that, but thank you for asking.
What do you mean by explaining, though? I'm just kidding.
So, if you once the world opens up to you, I wanted to go and see what was going on, and so I played a bit of baseball. Okay, that was fun for about 5 minutes. I can get really good at this and get a trophy.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you get a trophy.
Get 10 home runs in a row. You can't strike out once.
Yeah, and then you can use the money that you get from that as rewards for stuff. You can go and play Scale Electric. You can go and dance in a bar. The dancing mini game weirded me out because
it's very strange.
You actually want to go, as opposed to taking like a critical path route to the symbols to do your dance moves. You actually want to go the long way round.
Matt, you will experience this. It's really hard to explain. Yeah.
So
very strange.
If you've got a block, and there's 16 squares in it, and to do your dance moves, they highlight a number of those squares. And I was going to the ones as fast as I could to hit the button. It was saying that I was doing it wrong, but there's nothing to explain to you. Actually, you want to go all the way round, and then to the square. And then as far as you possibly can to the next one, so that you elongate it to do the better dance moves. And so, why?
Makes sense to me. No, I will chalk that up to like you get into a boss battle and you don't know the pattern yet. There's no way you could know the boss's pattern. You're gonna die the first time, but you know the pattern the next time. So when you go through, you do that. So the first time you get into a dance, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Oh, okay, I failed. This time I see how you do it. The second time, you get better at it.
I was bored by then.
Okay.
And the Scale Electric guy, is it? Oh, do you want to race our electric cars? And you can pick up parts from around town, and you can build new cars and then race those. And then you're not actually racing them. You just say, "Do you want to enter a race?" Yes. And then you watch toy cars go around a circuit for about a minute. Fuck off.
I did like 2 of those races and I was like, I don't like this, and I stopped doing that. So I will give you that. It's a bit weird.
I will give you that, but I do have a favorite though out of those. Because you're talking about mini games now, which is probably
karaoke.
one. No, not karaoke.
Not karaoke. I'm
That's great.
Did you see the look of disgust on Evan's face when you said it wasn't karaoke?
This is disgusting. I don't like this conversation.
Is it
you might like this one. I did the I even forgot the name of it, but you told me on, I think it was Twitter, you said what it was. Is the one where you basically are the head of a club at a bar, and you get to pick the ladies that entertain people.
Oh,
what's it called?
That might be like the best side mini game of any game ever. It is so fucking good.
Plus, you make so much damn money; it's so worth your time.
So you get to moonlight as a pimp, is what you're saying.
Basically,
no, I guess you guys don't have.
It's fully legal.
So this is a thing in Japan where
it's not seedy at all.
No, well, yeah. There's a cabaret club. So basically, they call them hostess and host clubs.
That's what it is.
You go to a place, you pay a certain amount of money for time. So like you can play 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes usually. So you go down, they'll put you in a booth, and they assign a girl to you that works for the cabaret club. She'll sit down, and her main job is just to talk to you and pretend that she's interested in what the fuck you're saying. and laugh and light your cigarettes for you and basically
fill your drinks
and kind of push you into spending more money.
Oh yeah.
Because what you're paying for is the time plus what you've spent on drinks and food. And then once your time's up, a guy will come over. He's like, "Do you want to extend your time?" And you say, "I'm good."
It sounds like an American strip club without the lap dance.
Okay. So, Mr. Las Vegas, yes.
I mean, that's kind of.
Can we call you that from now on? By the way,
that's going to be Matt's wrestling name when we take you and Vin on in a TLC match.
Let's do it.
Actually, I expect that as his new title, his opening title, Mr. Las Vegas, every single time the Beerumverate's on.
It's a bit disrespectful to Wayne Newton. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know who that is, so I don't care.
So basically, imagine if you went to a strip club, but you sat in a booth, and the woman would come sit by you, and just talk to you,
and not
instead
naked.
of dancing on you. Yeah, she's wearing like a lovely dress, all done up, and you're basically paying for her time. So there's a mini game where you become the manager of a cabaret club where you
have to like match their personalities of the customer to the personality of the girl, so that matches the interest of the people. And it's always interesting because you usually don't have enough people to match the people that are coming up, so you have to like be strategic and going like, okay, this person doesn't have as much of this personality, so I'll put him with that one. This one's a more expensive person because he's wearing a really nice suit, so I'm going to take her off that table and put him with this guy instead because he's going to give me more money.
Dude, nothing
really fun.
I think, Mitch, nothing excites me more than the idea. Well, let me finish my sentence for anyone.
All right, that's the end of the episode.
I want to see Matt play this mini game.
I do too. I'm excited. Is it in Zero?
Yeah, it's totally in Zero. Yeah, I think that might have been where it started out. It was so,
damn it! You can't stop playing this game until you play it. I need to see you play it, because then you're gonna be addicted. It's great.
Well, it was so popular that Ryuga Gotoku Studios, who makes all the Yakuza games, put it in the Fist of the North Star game that they made. And I played that shit until I got the trophy for completing all this stuff. But anyway, so let's move on to side quests. And McWomble, I want to hear what you want to say about side quests, because I remember when you were on Podcast Reload, you were talking about how you were kind of giving the game the benefit of the doubt, and then you got to a side quest with some wannabe like punk rockers, and you just said it was super boring, and that fucking like blew my mind, because I thought that like
do you mean your exact words were, you mean the hilarious side quest?
Yeah,
that was your exact words back to me. So it was fucking dumb.
Okay, so please walk me through your experience with these side quests.
It was
as much as you can remember from it, I suppose.
Well, I think it's just I'm trying to think of a better word than inane.
But the side quest is optional.
Yeah, but having listened to the drug pusher equivalent for Yakuza of Mr. Evan Piotrowski, I needed to experience some of this. He's going around coughing Yakuza virus over people, spreading his disease.
Oh, I'm very sick. That sounded gross. I'm sorry.
He looks pretty healthy to me.
Yeah, well, he's got
McWomble, you're the one that got sick.
Yeah, I was. But it wasn't the Yakuza virus. I can assure you of that.
No, I think McWomble watched Berkough's first stream, and just watching it gave him some sort of virus that continued on for several days.
I was thinking lack of Yakuza made him sick, where we probably played Yakuza.
I like that better. But anyway, sorry.
So, only if you're addicted or infected, then there's Yakuza, the continuous play of Yakuza, or Fist of the North Star, or Judge Eyes.
So, McWomble, you started to get into what you do like.
The side story. Then they started shit talking, and I just distracted me. So there you go, side quest. So you meet these three guys, and they're trying to pretend to be punk rockers, but they're actually not. They're actually lame, and you've got to teach them how to talk to a crowd. Yes. And then they go on stage and they play a terrible song, and then they say their piece, and someone talks about making pancakes because I picked the wrong option. And it was amazing. It was one of the best side quests ever. I don't even understand why Evan didn't talk about it on the latest Coffee Beer Cast, saying it was one of the best side quests that he's ever done.
I'll have you guys on for the second round of side quest talks. But so Matt, you got into your first side quest, and it seemed like you were a bit intrigued where the story went or it was going to go. So like, how did you feel about like running into that random side quest with the high school couple?
I don't know. It was a little jarring, but I was like, yeah, I'll do this.
Yeah, it's always that you're walking through the world. Immediately the camera cuts and you get presented with a possible side quest, and it's up to you if you want to engage with it to go and talk to the person for the side quest.
It turned out that this guy's girlfriend was not selling herself, but rather she was selling her panties.
Right.
It's a real thing, by the way.
That's totally a thing in Japan, apparently.
It's also in the U.S. too. You wouldn't be surprised. You'd be surprised.
There's fucking Instagram people selling the bathwater that they sat in. So
yeah, it's really strange.
So
who are these people?
I do. While we're on the strange side quest, I got another strange side quest for you guys that I ran into. And I guess this is the difference. I forgive these weird side quests because this one wasn't my favorite, actually. This one was strange, and I get what they were going for. And so I didn't care like by the end of it, but that's fine. Was they wanted me to be a model. And so I had to like take shirtless pics, and they told me of an expression I should show. And I had to choose from a selection of expressions to show in my picture, whether it was like cute or happy or buff. And then all of a sudden I kicked their ass at the end of it, which was kind of funny.
That's always how they end.
That was just your Thursday. That wasn't in the game, was it?
What?
That was just your Thursday. It wasn't in the game.
No, that was in the game. That wasn't my Thursday. Oh, come on. I mean, I guess I do look like the Hoff, so I guess I do have some, some modeling gigs coming up soon. No, just kidding. I have no idea.
It's
one thing but it's fun.
Right. One thing I do love about the side quests is the idea that Kiryu is like the super stoic straight man, and he's always
to do stupid stuff.
Well,
like and that's orange on his head and
exactly
promote a town in somewhere.
Yep.
I was listening.
As he goes all the time.
You should watch that side quest. The whole joke of the entire series is like he's super stoic. He's like kind of the straight man, and he's always the unwilling participant in other people's bullshit. But he is such a nice guy that like, because he's like, he has a sense of justice. He has a sense of the ways things work. And one thing I really like about the series that's different from open world games, although we talked about this is not necessarily an open world game, is that like in GTA, like you can just like run up to a grandma and fucking just crack her right in the face and knock the Starbucks coffee out of her hand. In the Yakuza series, you don't hurt anyone other than bad people. Kiryu would never lay a hand on someone that didn't deserve it. Not only that, he fucking helped, like all the side quests are about helping people, random citizens. He is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of the Kamurocho area. It's like you stop someone from stealing a bike, or you deliver a pizza for someone, like all this stuff. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, what the Avengers are doing and stuff, that's meaningless, but it means something to the people that live there. And Kiryu is that person in these games. And so for however ridiculous these things are, when people ask him to do something, he has this sense of like, he has this humanity to him that like GTA characters don't have. It's like,
don't at all.
All right, I'm kind of being.
Well, he's empathetic to GTA's psychopathic.
Yeah, so like he can't really like, it's empathy because he can't like necessarily relate to these people's he doesn't have the experiences they had, but he's like, look, I get where you're coming from type of thing. I don't have the time on my hands, but yet I feel you. I'm going to help you out. And everything ends in him smashing someone's head.
Well, he obviously does have the time on his hands, because property sales take months to go through. So imagine what it's like when you're trying to do it in a corrupt manner.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he's trying to bribe people.
The time is ticking, but if someone's wedding ring gets sucked up by a Roomba, you have a fucking amazing memory, by the way. Either that or I'm just shit and I'm comparing you to my terrible memory. Like, he's going to help the guy out.
Do you want me to? I can probably recite that whole side quest for you if you want.
But like, yeah, he's there for that. Like, he's the guy that saves the kitten from the tree, that jumps and catches the balloon for the kid that lost it. And I think that shit is so cool. And it's a common thread throughout the entire series where, like, he's going to help the common person just because he's a good guy. Yes, he smashes people's. He destroys assholes without prejudice. But when it comes to, like, your average citizen,
there's a joke in there somewhere.
There's a joke in there somewhere, yeah. But like, so I like that. Like, let's just say, in terms of side quests, like some games, it's like, it's like, okay, we need to put side quests in there. It doesn't really make sense that the main character is like doing these side quests. One game that is great with these types of things is The Witcher, because The Witcher is there for side quests. He gets paid to deal with other people's bullshit. He gets into a town. Everyone knows him. He's got the eyes. He's got the hair. Everyone knows he's a Witcher. They run to him and say, like, hey, there's a demon possessing so-and-so. Like, there's a, I don't know, there's a plague maiden doing this. There's a drowner destroying the beach. He's there for the side quest. So it makes sense that random people are coming up to him and giving him these random tasks versus like other games where you're like, why the fuck am I the one doing this shit? Why am I the main person taking care of everyone's bullshit? So similar to The Witcher 3, I think, or at least the Witcher series, I think Kiryu is a great character because, like, he cares for other people. So however silly it is, at least I believe he's the one that's he's running through the street, someone tugs on his shoulder like, hey, can you help me? And he's going to fucking help him. So I do like how they position him as that type of character.
So in that sense, rather than doing stupid stuff and beating people's faces in, he's like, what was the TV show in the UK? And then they turned it into 2 films with Denzel Washington.
The
Equalizer. Yes, Evan's stream has crashed. Thank God. Right, who wants to talk about Star Trek?
Well, I was actually going to go off Evan's note because I think Evan made a good point there in regards to it, is that, you know, I think that's why I'm forgiving of the side missions, because in the overall arching story, because you guys haven't finished any of it, get on that. So once you finish the story, you're going to realize that the actual like plot of Kiryu's main plot story, his selflessness matches the selflessness he has in the side missions. And so I guess that's why I was forgiving of that side mission as much, even though I think it was a ridiculous, like funny notch side mission, but it's at least makes sense within his character, because there's going to be moments in the story that he's going to run into many, many different moments where he's going to have to make a choice, and the choice is going to, and some of the choices where he doesn't have to make a choice, but he just chooses to be more generous and more about the people and what's best for the greater good rather than what's the best of himself. And he's just a very selfless character. And so as you get through the story, you kind of witness that. And so when you do the side missions and see how selfless he is, it just makes total sense in the aspects of the character. So then when you run into those funky situations where you're like, oh, this is meant to be funny, this is meant to be stupid, but he's there to help him. And that's the whole point of like what he wants to do, because he wants to. That's who he is. That's his character.
One thing I will say is I actually do like the combat. Okay. Getting onto the stuff that I like.
Did you wait until Evan would not hear you to talk about it? Is that what you were waiting for?
I chose this moment tactically. I had nothing to do with crashing Evan's stream.
Which is a great picture, by the way, of Evan right now.
Right.
Yeah. So I did enjoy the combat. So I found it quite free flowing. I was using a decent controller. And I was like you, Mitch. I didn't block. I didn't dodge. It was just run around, pick up stuff, and smash people with it to try and see what happens. Street signs, bikes.
It's very experimental.
Cones. Yeah. So I found the combat quite rewarding, which is why I found the other stuff that you've got to do difficult to deal with.
Okay.
Because you've got to go through on a 20 minutes, half an hour of someone talking and someone else talking, and then them talking more and you talking more, and then them talking more again, and then we still talking? Yes, we are. We're going to still talk, and then you can actually get out and actually play the game. So, I would have preferred if there was a bit less exposition and a bit more actual gameplay, and more context to why you're walking through this world and just having random battles with people. So what Evan was saying around, you need to have the kind of drunks and punks and whoever else around. Do you? Why can't you write in a story that you're fighting a rival Yakuza gang, and when they see you, they're going to fight you? Because I just came out of a building where I beat up about 30 of them, and then I go back into the world, and the only people who want to beat me up are drunks and punks and
that's the whole point about the game and the culture there. It's about territory, and what territory do you own? And you as a Yakuza is a threat to these people. You're a well-known Yakuza to people. And so those drunks, those punks, they all want a piece of being a part of a family, and to be known and to be feared and to be wealthy in that aspect. And so the only way they're going to get that respect is if they're going to beat you up. And so for you, not only is it for them, they have that motivation because they want to beat you up to get that reputation, but then also it's for you to keep your reputation of saying, I'm not gonna get my ass kicked by a bunch of drunks. Like that's not I'm Kiryu Kazuka. I'm not gonna get my ass kicked by a bunch of drunks, like, because I'm
Kazuma Kiryu. Is they reverse the family name and first name. So
I'd say they justify it.
It's a small thing about it as well. Is I do quite like the fact when you're beating people up, the money falls out.
Yes. It doesn't. That only happens in Zero. I noticed that. That's an only Zero thing. I was like, oh, money's popping out of them. That's so weird.
Yeah, it's quite a funny thing. And I
didn't know they hung on to that many coins.
Yeah, but I did think that was quite funny. It's like you smash a bike into someone and loads of money flies out.
Yeah. All right, well, guys, we have been going for about an hour and a half on Yakuza.
Well, I'm hoping that you don't get infected. Mitch has been thoroughly infected, and Evan's just spreading the disease.
I mean, like right now it's stagnant. I'm waiting for the next game to come out, and then I'll get the virus will start kicking in again. But at the moment, it's kind of just at what is it called? Remission.
It's in remission. It's like cancer now.
No, it's I did actually study microbiology for 2 modules at university, but I can't remember the term. Bollocks. Right. So Evan's not here. So what do we want to say about him? What do we think he thinks? I think he loves it, and he's an apologist, and he's spreading his terrible disease around the world through every medium that he can possibly find. Various different podcasts, social media. Don't listen to him. Make your own choices. Just say no. Say no to Yakuza.
I had a feeling. I thought you were going to make a sign behind you says that like say no to
Just
Yakuza.
Say no. I should have done that. I didn't have enough. I didn't prepare enough. I'm terribly sorry.
I think I'm gonna keep streaming it for right now. Like I said before, I don't know that I'm ever gonna get through the full game.
You will.
We'll
I'm gonna hold you to it on the comments.
Yeah, we'll probably do some more Kingdoms of Amalur if I can get my wife in. And
which is I found out that it's actually a great video game for vegans.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, you don't eat any animals or use any animal-based products in Kingdoms of Amalur. So it's a vegan-friendly video game.
I never even heard of it until I started playing it.
It's really good. I like it. But yeah, so on that note, guys, we want to just say goodbye. I don't think Evan's going to jump back in. I think his computer just totally crashed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's it. We're out.